Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. This is the Consolidated Land Use Board. I'm sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties, but we're glad you're all here. It is Monday, June 24th. The start is 5:42. We're gonna go ahead and take roll call. Bailey.
Here.
John.
Here.
Frank.
Here.
Forrest.
Here.
Becky.
Here.
Tori. Not here. Jesse is here, and Caitlin is also not here.
Caitlin, let me know if she was.
Okay.
So we have 6, and we do have a form non-share.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to approval of the April 10th, 2024 minutes. Everybody got a copy of your minutes? Does anybody would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion that we approve the minutes.
Thanks, Frank. Do we have a second?
A second.
Really? Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I'm gonna go through roll call to approve the April 10th minutes. Bailey? John?
Yep.
Frank?
Yep.
Forrest?
Approved.
Becky?
Yes.
Jesse is approved. Okay, minutes passed. Next, we're gonna move into public comment. So
General public comment.
general public comment, thank you. So just remember to please come up to the podium, please sign in, state your name and your home address. And please make sure that you're making public comment that the land use board has jurisdiction over. And this is general public
It's
comment.
general public comment, so it does not have to pertain to items. As a matter of fact, it should not pertain to the agenda item this evening, which is a map amendment. But it can pertain to anything else, zoning, planning, that would be under the purview of this board. And 4 minutes, I believe, right?
Yeah, so you said, do you set the timer? Okay, so if anybody has public comment in the room, we'll go into the room first, then we'll move to online. Any general public comment?
What were the minutes?
The meeting minutes from our April 10th meeting. So we take meeting minutes and then we approve the minutes based on how they've been written up.
Is that for public consumption of meeting
Mhm.
minutes?
Yeah, it's
It's
all
in
in
the packet. In the packet online.
Any public
It's
comment?
also in the link
Oh,
online if you go to the meeting page.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I would say, because I suspect that most people in this room are here to comment. I just sent you an email if you would like to basically look at that and state that out loud, because other than the map amendment, which is our agenda item, nothing else will be discussed or commented on during that agenda. That is from the city attorney. That is the only thing that is on the agenda this evening is a map amendment. It is not a text amendment. It is not discussing the text within our zoning code. It is to create an overlay district, and it is simply looking at geography and map.
okay. So,
That's from John Hess, our city attorney.
okay, I just see John's comment. Is that what you want me to read?
Yeah, there's 3 things. So if you want to just look at whichever one, yeah,
You want me to read this whole
I
thing?
think you probably can. I would say that just in general, not. Yeah. I'm happy to as well if you want.
Okay, no, I'll read it. I'm gonna leave names out.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, I'm gonna read it on that. And I'll speak very loudly too. Okay, so this is the email that Jennifer has sent me, that she's asking me to read aloud to the group. The agenda for the June 24th meeting states: zoning map amendment, amending the original official zoning map for the city of Livingston to implement a gateway overlay district. I reviewed the below emails and in my advice that according to the Montana open law meetings, the only thing that can be discussed at the June 24th meeting, this meeting this evening, is what is on the agenda, which is a map amendment. Upon advice of the city civil attorney, any discussion regarding section 30.46
Which is the building design standards.
Livingston City Codes is prohibited at the meeting because such is not on the agenda or the public notice of the meeting. If there are concerns regarding that section, you may write the city manager and city civil attorney, and it will be addressed by them or if necessary, at a meeting of the Land Use Board and or City Commission at the appropriate time in the future.
So I need to make that very clear. We will not take public comments about anything but the map amendment. So section 3046, which is the building design standards that are already in our code, that will apply to this overlay district, cannot be discussed.
Okay,
That is from our city attorney.
It can't be discussed with the agenda item, but it could
It
be
could,
addressed.
that is correct. It cannot be discussed during the agenda item. So, and that's why I wanted her to tell you this now. If it's something that you wish to make a 4 minutes or less comment on now, you're welcome to. And just remember, none of this can be discussed as part of the agenda item. I'm just gonna make that clear.
so we're in general public comment.
Yes.
Mr.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Yeah, no, that's why I wanted it read before we got away from general public comment. Because I figured somebody was here to talk.
Okay. I have a general public comment about 30.46, which is, by the way, my name's Andrew Field, and I am part owner of land that would be subject to this map amendment.
What's your home address, please, Andrew?
Box 500 in the
Thanks.
It's my home address. So I'm happy that the city and this board is working on updating the zoning and taking things from growth policy and making them statutory so they have the full force of law. And I understand that's what's going to happen over the course of the next year. That's kind of the big project going on. And that's all well and good. Something got stuck into 30.46. I would love to see the legislative history of it when it happened. It's different from all the other language. 30.46 is building standards. It's even titled building standards. And so that's design, that's how it looks, how tall things can be, materials, that sort of thing. But there's one little section in there, K.1.c, and it goes way beyond anything having to do with building standards. And I've talked to people who say, oh, this is just going to get the city in more unwanted litigation, which it's already in plenty of. And K.1.c says, quote, an economic analysis, remember this is building standards, an economic analysis including types and volumes of goods and services to be offered, impact on existing businesses, wage scales, and percentage of local ownership and employees. That's it. That's the entire thing. K.1.c. And the problem is it has no place in building standards because that's more of a economic consideration. And it really shouldn't be there. And it also provides no standards. So what types of wages would the body that receives that application, and that's the requirement in the application for a building permit. What kind of analysis is going to be used? What criteria is going to be used to judge the types and volumes of goods and services to be offered, the impact on existing businesses, wage scales, percentage of local ownership and employees? It doesn't give any standards. And the whole purpose of statute and laws is to give you a standard. If it says you may not do a building over 42 feet, then you can't do a building over 42 feet. There's not really a lot to argue about. And if it says, one of the things it says is there should be a human scale entry. So if you have a big warehouse, why don't you make a nice little entrance like they just did at Town and Country? I think they did a very beautiful job of making that great big metal building have a human scale entrance. And that's the sort of thing that should be in a building design standards. This economic analysis thing is going to do nothing but get the city embroiled in more litigation. It's vague, it's unclear, and it doesn't belong in building design standards at all. Happy to entertain any questions in my remaining minute.
Great.
No? Okay.
I do have, despite the fact that it may be slightly out of place, in your opinion, in that section of the code, is there a concern about the economic analysis as a whole?
Yes.
And
It's not statutory. I have asked city staff, can you point to me where the state statutes say that can be provided for and have not been pointed to?
So, Madam Chair, I'm just gonna interject here. So, I am not a lawyer. If I were, I wouldn't be sitting here as your planning director. The city is aware of this and he is researching it. It is not something that we can discuss or guess on because yeah, I can't guess as to whether the accuracy of that statement. But we do have, the city attorney is aware of this. And
Yeah,
he brought
ultimately,
forward
just,
concerns.
I understand that sometimes there's larger concerns and understanding those as a public comment is helpful. So, yeah, just wanted to understand a little bit. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Field.
Especially the vagueness of it is, that language is super vague and would tend to lead towards arbitrary and capricious decision-making, which is what has gotten the city in trouble to this point. All right,
Thanks for your
everybody.
comment.
Thank you.
Any other general public comment? Hi, Patricia.
Patricia Grabo, 204 East Calendar. Can't write, and talk at the same time. And so I want to commend the city for, I guess, getting themselves in trouble. Apparently. I come from a family that's been here since 1883. My grandfather was city commissioner in 1894. I was a city commissioner. I voted against the annexation of Printing for Less. When I was a single dissenting vote as a city commissioner. I have owned a building in downtown Livingston that my grandfather built in 1908. I laud economic analysis. Livingston, Montana used to have the traffic go entirely through it. And then suddenly when I-90 came along, we were faced with an exit at exit 337, 333, and 330, which was devastating to places like Columbus, like Belgrade, and their downtowns died rather quickly. And some of us have been fighting tooth and nail for 25 years to keep our downtowns alive, given that situation. Now, when I was on the city commission and I voted against the annexation of Printing for Less, I knew I had enough background in urban planning to know that we needed these gateway zones. I cannot tell you how grateful we are in the downtown to at last have our city perhaps get itself in trouble, who knows? I doubt it. Have the foresight to look at these gateway zones and take a serious look at the implications of them, to look at what's happening to our businesses downtown. We have 350 businesses downtown. Those are supporting our Livingston families. Those go back to the beginning of Livingston when we were the first entrance to the first national park in the world. We had 20 hotels that sprung up to accommodate the 30,000 visitors on 6 trains a day. We have a history of a successful downtown, and it is being threatened. So I laud, I cannot tell you how thrilled I was today when I read what you have published. And I cannot tell you how serious your deliberations truly are to the future of our community. Because if I have a dream, and I'm getting old, so they can become more pronounced. If I have a dream, it is that we would be the one community along I-90 that would actually thrive. Our downtown would thrive in spite of what happened when those 3 exits were taken 2 miles from our downtown. This is intelligence. This is growth policy. This is welcomed by this 350 businesses downtown. This is welcomed by, we don't have a growth policy unless we have a viable downtown. It does not exist because we are to grow from our inside out. Thank you for the deliberations. Thank you to our city planner. Thank you to our city manager. Thank you to our commission for these deliberations. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. Any other general public comment in the room?
I have a question, but I don't know if it's not a comment. I just,
Can you, I'm
Do
sorry.
you want to
can
come up to the
Like,
podium and sign in and just say your name and
Just,
you
it
can.
can, a question, a comment, a news
Okay.
and whatever.
I'm Jim Bluer. I'm at 95 Willow Drive behind Town Pump.
Can you sign in please too, after you're done?
Sure.
That'd be great, thanks. It's just, we have to do it for public records.
So I'm just wondering, I received this letter saying, talking about this overlay zoning district. I'm one of the ones that's within that 300 feet. I'm in county, but I'm right behind all that mass, you know, the condos, Albertsons, you know, Murdochs and all that. So I'm just saying, why did I get this letter? And how is this gonna affect me? Does this affect me?
I'll explain that when you're done with your comments.
Okay, that's all that's my question. I don't have a comment. I just don't know why I'm receiving this. I just want to know what is the effect of what's going on.
May I?
You are,
Respond to
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And several people have had this question. I responded to everybody I thought that I did. So if you called in or that didn't, I apologize. We are required by law when there is a zoning change, map amendment. And again, zoning is only within the city, right? So this board, this city has purview over what's in the city.
Sure,
So any zoning map amendment is only going to pertain to parcels that are within incorporated city limits. However, we are required by law to notify property owners both inside the city and outside the city within 300 feet of any property that is going through a proposed zoning map amendment or a zone change. So that's why you got that. It doesn't directly affect you. No, it's just to let you know that this is what's going on. And we
That
are
it's
required by
happening.
state statute to do that to
So
300 feet. So
there's
we
not
took,
like anything that's gonna affect me in any way.
no, we took
You're
this
in the
map
county.
right here.
What's that?
Yeah,
You're in the county.
Correct,
So
correct.
this will only affect property within the city.
yeah, we basically took this map, do I have that? Yes, I do.
Right.
So where it's blue, these are commercially zoned properties
Right.
within the city. And then we had our mapping people take that and they put a buffer around all these blue parcels that are in blue for 300 feet.
Yeah,
And anything that was in there, any property, even if it was just part of your property.
right.
was in
I'm
there.
right up next,
Yeah,
close to that.
So only these
Yeah.
blue shaded parcels, which are only commercially zoned parcels. And only within the city are part of this map amendment.
Okay.
So you were just notified to say, hey, here's what's going on, because we're required by the state to do that.
It's around me, but it doesn't affect me.
Correct. If
Gotcha.
you were at 301 feet, you wouldn't have gotten the letter.
Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other general public comment in the room? Okay, let's move online. Any public comment from anyone online?
And if you have a public comment, feel free to take yourself off mute. Just click on that little microphone in the bottom left of your screen, and that will take you off mute. And
There we go.
then you just, Tammy, it looks like you just took yourself off mute. If you want to make a public comment, can you please state your full name and your home address, please, for the record?
Sure. Tammy Lewis, 84 Fox Run. So I just wanted to piggyback on the gentleman that just commented. So you said if my property is 301 feet from the proposed area, I would not have received notice.
Correct. So the way that we did this, and we couldn't look all this up by hand, so we have the map of, and I apologize, I should have shared that with, let me share my screen with you. So you can see what I was talking about.
Well, I have the map because the gentleman that owns property right next to mine did receive notice.
Yes, and so again, we took the outside boundaries of that map, those parcels that are shaded in blue. And why is there no share button here? And we then just basically put a buffer around it. You could do that in the mapping that basically says 300 feet, right? So if any part of your property is within 300 feet of one of those parcels that are shaded in blue on this map, and again, these parcels in blue are only within the incorporated city of Livingston limits, then you would have received a notice. The notice is just a public notice, similar to we're required by law to post it in the paper, 15 days, I believe, before this hearing. So we posted a couple Saturdays ago. We are also required by certified mail to mail out to the parcels themselves, the property owners, and to any property owners for property that is within 300 feet of one of these blue parcels. So we had 49 parcels that are in blue here that are identified as within the proposed gateway overlay zone district. I think we had 300 and something parcels that property owners beyond that got certified mailings because they were within 300 feet. And like I said, we are required by law, by state law, to do that. I'm pretty sure the city would have preferred to save $8 a certified mailing, but we're required to do it. So that's why you received it.
Okay, great. That clears that up. And my next question is what type of financial impact is this going to have on the gateway zoning area for the businesses?
So we're not going to respond to that, but you can take that comment. And if you want, again, it's within the focus of the map itself. That's for your consideration. But we can't, so that's, I'm going to respond to why you got the mailing because it's come up a couple times and your comment is on record. The board has heard it, but they're not going to respond directly to you.
Okay, so who do I contact to get that information?
You may contact me at planning@livingstonmontana.org. You can contact the city manager at livingstonmontana.org. You can come by City Hall or give us a call but there's no economic analysis involved in a map amendment. It is just for the map. So I don't know how much information we can really give you right now.
Right, but I thought that this was general comment about what was not on the agenda.
Yes, correct.
It is general comment, and so we are happy to take your comment. It's not necessarily a time for us to do a Q&A with the folks in the audience. So I think if you listen through the meeting today, you'll get more information, but if you have specific questions about the comment that you made, Jennifer's given you several different ways to connect with city staff or the manager.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you so
That
much.
sounds
We
great.
appreciate it. Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks a bunch. You got it.
Thanks, Tammy.
Anybody else online have a public comment? Going once? Last call for public comment, general public comment. Okay, let's close public comment. We're gonna move on. So number 4, planning items, I see nothing. Number 5, zoning items. So number 5 on the agenda, zoning map amendment. Amending the official zoning map for the city of Livingston to implement a gateway overlay district. So everyone received the city staff report, so I'll allow Jennifer to give her staff report to the group. This is a process in which the city is working towards implementation of sections of the growth policy. So I appreciate the city moving forward with that. So Jennifer, do you want to go ahead with any comments about the staff report?
I did not, typically I will prepare a formal PowerPoint for this one. I did not. It's pretty straightforward, so I pulled up some of the attachments just so I can walk you through this really quickly, hopefully. And then we find the staff report. It's up here. Okay, so as you said, this is the proposed gateway overlay zoning district map amendment. Sort of was born out of, recommendations in the 2021 growth policy. The, let's see, I wanted to give you the right things that were in the. Yeah, so goals, strategies, so that were in the growth policy that basically recommended or encouraged building design, identifying these gateway areas at the entrances and exits to Livingston, predominantly its entrance. When people are coming there, you want people to realize that they are entering Livingston. So it's some places do it with road treatment changes. They narrow lanes, they slow down the speed. Some places do it with greenery or with signs. There's different ways to sort of designate that gateway. But the first step was to identify the areas that we wanted to consider those gateways where people are entering the city of Livingston, kind of their first into the city. And so in the 21 growth policy, the recommendations related to that, the goal 2.1, preserve and enhance Livingston's unique community character. Another objective, establish community gateways, which is what this is, to indicate entrances into Livingston to celebrate its character. Identify key roadway and non-motorized entry points or gateways into Livingston that's also tied to the map and the areas. Review, update, and enforce the policies, procedures, and building design guidelines in Livingston's gateways. And then explore adopting design overlay zones and gateways. Some of these are sort of saying the same thing in a different way. The strategy 2.1.1.2 with the review, update, and enforce policies, procedures, and building design guidelines is part of that. And so I had indicated in this, the city has building design guidelines that were established actually before the 2021 growth policy. In those guidelines, they were updated to read that the zoning map amendment had already happened and that these guidelines would apply to that. Unfortunately, the zoning map amendment never happened. So the design standards in 3046 right now, and again, just to give you background, not to discuss as part of the analysis or evaluation or consideration tonight, apply to large scale retail, which is 20,000 square feet or larger. And then there is a really small pocket, I'm going to show you in the city. It's the strangest thing. I was here a couple months before I even realized it. This little neighborhood commercial overlay district with the lines right here, it's up by KPRK. That is also subject to the gateway, the design standards in 3046. Again, really quick, before anybody asks, KPRK was not changing anything. They're keeping the building as it is. So there was, and so in the gateway design standard, it says try to put the parking in the back. They're not changing anything. They're leaving the building in the same place. They're leaving it as it is. They're just elevating it. So those were not enforceable. They weren't changing anything. They were keeping with the historic sites that was there. Another thing is those design standards are only applicable to commercially zoned property. So these properties, there are a couple of properties in here that are completely residential uses, but technically they're in a neighborhood commercial zone. So this is already in place again. But the actual gateway overlay zone in these 3 community gateway areas, and that ties to the special districts map in the growth policy, right? So in exhibit 3.2, this is all in your packet. These dark green areas were identified as gateway overlay zones. I think they meant to say potential gateway overlay zones, but that's the intent. You may notice that there's a bunch of green that's not within the city. So we don't have any jurisdiction over property that's not in the city. So we're not going to bring forward a map amendment that includes property outside the city. The other thing that this map didn't consider is there are several properties in here that are residentially zoned. These 3046 design standards that are intended to apply to the gateway overlay zones are only applicable to commercial developments, right? Or large scale retail. So when determining and kind of fine tuning the map and creating this map for the proposed overlay district here, we weren't going to just go with what was in the growth policy, right? Because it included properties that were not in the city. It also didn't include some commercially zoned properties that have since been annexed. And then finally, it didn't make any sense to us to include properties that were residentially zoned because no development on their strictly residentially zoned, they were never gonna be able to have that kind of large commercial development or unless they asked for a rezoning. So if at the time, let's say we have a residential parcel in this area, that comes and they want to ask for a rezoning to commercial and that zoning goes through, it is likely we would recommend that the commission apply a gateway overlay zone to that parcel at the same time as they're changing their zoning to commercial. I'm not saying that that rezoning would ever be approved. I'm just saying that's why there's no sense in putting an overlay over it now that's never gonna apply the way it's currently zoned. So that is what these 49 parcels in blue are showing. They're showing within the city limits. They're showing commercially zoned. And in these key gateway areas that, if I can put these maps next to each other, and I hope I'm still sharing, let me make sure I'm still sharing with the folks at home, because sometimes.
I think you may have only shared.
Oh my
one map.
goodness.
The other one.
Okay, that's not what I wanted to do, so I apologize. And those of you at home, now hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. These on the right, that is the proposed 49 parcels, those in blue in the gateway overlay zoning areas. And that is, sure this is one. Sorry, this is very difficult to share multiple things at a time. Again, these dark greens, this is from the growth policy showing kind of where those gateway areas are. One's kind of out by the hospital. One's out by Printing for Less and FedEx, and one is down by kind of the Albertsons RY area. And so that's what we brought to you tonight, and this with these blue areas minus the residentially zoned parcels. As you can see over here, I pulled up a map of the zoning districts in the city of Livingston. If you look really closely, some of these are not correct. I just saw one tonight that's not, so I sent that over to our GIS. We're working on that. Just FYI, we just hired a new GIS person that'll just going to be doing GIS for the city and county. So hopefully all these little glitches you might find in maps are going to be cleaned up. But the vast majority of these properties, these commercially zoned properties that we're proposing to be included in this overlay district are highway commercial. We've got the light industrial for the hospital, which allows commercial uses, which is why it's in there. We have this publicly zoned, and since there are kind of, they're not really commercial, but there are some large kind of like recreational type buildings and stuff allowed in the public zone, we went ahead and included that. Everything down here that is included in the zone, there's a little inset map right here on the right, if you can see, is all highway commercial that's included, except this mixed use, and that was rezoned, I think, in the last 2.5 years. But it is, pardon?
That's Dave Howe's property.
Yes, and that's a house property, and it is because mixed use allows for commercial uses, it's included in there. And then, let's see, out by over here, again, these are all highway commercially zoned properties, so it's kind of, there's nothing else but the highway commercial that's included in here. This is the Justin property, this is FedEx, Printing for Less. These little white areas, they're not within the city, they're enclaves, county enclaves within the city, so that's why they're not showing on here. So that is how staff determines this map that we're bringing forward. And again, the reason behind it is,
Can I ask you clarifying
Yes,
questions before you
absolutely.
move on? So for the majority of the properties in the blue, it's commercial, highway commercial, with the exception of light industrial out by the hospital and mixed use down by 89 South.
and the public one that's.
And
by
that
the
tiny
park
little
over the
public one
hospital,
by
yeah.
Myers River. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Everything else, from what I could tell, is highway commercial
Okay.
zone. So, and again, some of those highway commercial zones, I think, have residential uses on them, but because the potential is there for the commercial uses right now, as it stands, that's why they want to do it.
Thanks.
So anyway, they, and again, it's not, if somebody wants to put a new window on their building, they're not gonna be subject to this whole thing. There are things within I'm trying to think of where it is. I know like in site plan review and but it applies to this, that there has to be like more than 50% of an improvement, right? So that's why I say redevelopment, but it's not like if you just want to put an addition onto, you know, a building that's been there already. We're not gonna say the whole building has to comply with these design standards. It's like 50% or more of an improvement. And I apologize, I should know this. I think it's in area of square footage that's the changes versus like value. So, and that is again, consistent with when site plan review is triggered for something that's already there, it has to be more than 50% of additional square footage, or change in square footage. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's how we got to that map. Again, the growth policy, this is entirely supportive of what it wants to do. Now, we did have a gateway, the overlay zone visioning workshop in February that the city, put on. We had a consultant come in and do it. I want to say we had maybe a little over 30 people, 35. It was pretty snowy and yucky that night, but we had good turnout, good discussion. And I included the memo. There was a summary and recommendations memo that the consultant provided for that workshop that kind of went over the different discussion points, what people would like to see, what they didn't think was as important to see at these gateways. One of the things that came out of that memo was the recognition that the city is about to embark on the zoning code update. We have actually, our RFP submittal is closed. We got a couple of good proposals, and the selection committee is already evaluating those. We're gonna be selecting those. In a perfect world, we'll have everything figured out, and we will actually be bringing forward a contract to sign at the July 16th city commission meeting for that. But as you know, it takes time to get into that, right? And we're anticipating the process once a consultant is hired is going to take at least a year. We've allowed a little more time depending on feedback, changes that want to be made. If there's recommendations from this board that they make some edits when they bring forward a draft, city commission. So, but the ideal is a year is what we're shooting for, that we have that going to the city commission. Now, city commission, when you have a zoning change, right? It goes to you first, because any kind of zoning amendment, map or text has to go through this board and your capacity as the zoning commission. And then it has to be appropriately noticed. So it has to be noticed for the next city commission meeting to have a first reading, right? And then there's another noticing. The way our meetings are set up, it typically goes to the next month because it's 15 days and our city commission meetings are only 14 days apart. So it would be the next month that it goes to a second reading. And assuming no changes are requested, then it's another 30 days after it's approved at a second reading to go into effect. So you're really looking at close to a year and a half before we will have, you know, updated zoning code in place, right? Part of that zoning code does include looking at, because it is already in section 3046. So the consultant will be looking at that. We'll be taking that, looking at best practices, looking at current state statutes, looking at our own and figuring that out. However, as was recommended by the consultant after the Gateway Visioning workshop, you know, we have these design standards in place. They've been in our code. Their recommendation, and staff supports this and is recommending this as well, is that we use what's already in our code now. So we can get something and apply a map to it and say, okay, here's the map. We have these standards. Here's the map. And then throughout the next year, you know, ideally it would all happen at once with the zoning code update. Then I would say it's probably likely that some of that code language is going to change. But rather than wait a year and a half and see what that is, we're asking to actually establish the districts now, the overlay district. Since that was the intent of 3046, it says at the beginning, this is for, you know, already mapped gateway overlay zone and large scale retail. It's just somebody apparently forgot to map the overlay zone part of it. So, that's the purpose behind this. There were some other things that I hit on in my staff report. I'm happy to take questions. I think that I've tried to sort of given the overview of of what this is and how it is just about the map. It is not about the actual code that's already in place that will apply to this map area. But yeah, just, let's see, reasonable provision, that's, creation of a compatible urban growth. So again, this creation of this gateway overlay district, and the application of the design standards in 3046 to future commercial development within that district will encourage growth that is aesthetically and physically compatible with our historic design traditions, also reflect our unique character. Same thing, it's kind of focused on the commercial areas, the community gateways, that's kind of what's already out there. And I did want to mention that this came up a few times, people were confused, and I perhaps didn't explain this as well as I could have, I thought I did. The current base, we're gonna call it the base zoning district, the highway commercial, that public, that light industrial, the mixed use, that's what we're gonna call the base zoning district. That zoning district is not changed. That zoning district governs the uses on the property. The only thing that the overlay district governs is the design of the site and the buildings. It does not at all impact the uses that are allowed on the property. That is covered under the base zoning district, which is not changing. So if anybody has questions about that, I want to make that really clear. So yeah, we're obviously recommending that you recommend to the commission. Again, you're not the decision-making board, but you are here to evaluate, to analyze and discuss based on what I brought you in the staff report, and make a recommendation to the city commission. They will be hearing this at their July 16th meeting is the anticipation if it moves forward from here. So, just real quick, I know Jesse, you know this, the way forward here is you have a couple of options. You can completely, do not recommend this for approval. So you would recommend denial of this to the city commission, hoping you don't do that. You can recommend to the city commission to approve it as it's proposed by staff. Or you can recommend it to the city commission with modifications that you choose to make. And again, the modifications that are part of this discussion tonight would be to change what properties are included in that overlay, not to change anything in the design standards. So that's kind of your three options. And I guess I'm kind of done. I typically like to do something a little more formal. I just kind of didn't have time, but I hope I've kind of answered most of your questions, and I'm happy to answer any further.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Okay. And I just might really quickly, point of order, board discussion. What does public comment come in after we make a motion in a second? Where does
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, and then just a reminder, so you're gonna make a motion now. It's not the Bible, you're not held to it. I don't actually know why we do it this way. You're gonna make a motion, and then after, public comment on this agenda item, not general public comment, but on this particular map amendment, and after your discussion, if you guys, decide that's really not the way you want to go, the original motion, then you can just not move forward with it and you can make another motion.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, so here's what I think we'll do. Let's give everybody an opportunity to ask Jen questions on her staff report. We'll do that first. Then we'll entertain a motion. We need a second. After the second, we'll bring it up for public comment. Then it's discussion, then we vote. Everybody sound good with that?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna start down the other end of the table. Becky, do you have any questions for Jen on her staff report? Any clarifying questions?
I've got a couple.
Okay.
So, thanks for starting with me.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, that's okay. I'm fitting into the rhythm of all this. Some of them have been answered already. Are there any pending applications that would be impacted by this change? And I'm curious if it would be immediate, the zoning change where as soon as the map is updated, everything goes in, or if there's any grandfathering.
So do you want me to answer them one at a time? Or are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there are no pending applications in. If somebody has a building permit application in, it's a complete building permit application, it's already in. So again, going through this and then the 2 public hearings at the city commission and then the 30 days, that's when it would be in effect. So anything after that comes in, that would be subject to this on these properties, that's when it applies. There is no grandfathering. Again, it's if the buildings are already there and they just want to make some minor modifications, yes, that's great. Everything doesn't have to comply with this. But, no, we don't have, it doesn't start until the 30 days after the second public hearing where it's approved. And then anything after that.
Okay,
would
great.
apply.
And I think, so one of my questions was, why wouldn't we do this with the zoning code amendment? But it sounds like with what you were describing, that's like about 1.5 years out. The timing makes sense now to kind of get this passed, since we do have the zoning code in place. We need the map to line up with that. Later in 1 year plus, we'll have the opportunity to readjust the zoning code. So I think, did I interpret that correctly, is why we're kind of pushing the timing now?
Correct. And I would say it doesn't necessarily, I mean, if concerns are brought before the city commission and the city commission wants to consider a text amendment to 3046, they can do that at the time. This board cannot. And so it may be that they say, hey, we're hearing you and we think we don't want to wait another 1 year plus to have 3046 change. But right now, we're just moving forward. Staff is just moving forward with the recommendation from the consultant at the visioning workshop saying, use what you have in place now, get a map in there. And then anything else beyond that will come at the kind of guidance or direction from the city commission.
Okay, that's fair. And is there any other urgency for passing it now? Because I know that this meeting was postponed in order to get it on the agenda. So the public notice was put out in time. And I know this is my first meeting onto the board, so I don't have as much history on it. But just wondering if there is any other urgency or other reason why we had to delay this meeting in order to hear it today and get it passed.
So getting noticing in the enterprise right now is a little special and tricky. We have to get it for a Saturday paper. We have to have our notice there and proofed by 9 o'clock the Thursday before, 9 a.m. So it's really the Wednesday before that we need it in. And for the Wednesday, I think we have to have it the Friday before. So it's way in advance of when we need to have it. And then we also have to consider how long we need to notice. We had some challenges, getting the maps made for these, and it took almost 2 weeks. Because for whatever reason, I don't make the maps. I just kind of here, can you make these? But, again, we don't have a full-time GIS person. They're just in the process of hiring one. So it took us 2 weeks just to get the map ready so we could send out the certified mailings and get it posted. So that's why we had to push it back. We were not going to make getting those certified mailings out to everybody and getting it in the paper with the maps as they were finalized in time for the earlier meeting date.
Okay.
So yeah, that was the whole reason it was postponed.
All right, thanks for the background.
Yeah.
Those are the questions I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki. John, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so if future property is annexed into the city, I'm assuming it's going to, or could you confirm that they're gonna look to the growth policy and determine if it's in that proposed area and designate it as part of the gateway? Is that how that works?
So the growth policy, interestingly, again, it doesn't include, it includes properties that are not in the city, but it's missing some of the properties that have since been annexed. So the way we would address that, I anticipate, is when a property gets annexed, like RY and View Vista just recently did, within a certain amount of time after the annexation goes through, we are required to zone those properties. We're not rezoning them because they don't have any zoning there in the county right now. So we zoned RY, light industrial, we zoned View Vista, mixed use. If those properties, let's say, were in a gateway area at the same time, again, if we're recommending a commercial base zone and they're kind of within that area or nearby or immediately adjacent, we're gonna recommend that overlay be applied as well. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it's not like a definite for sure,
Yep.
but I think if something is adjacent to what's already there and it's annexed and it's gonna have a commercial zoning based district, there's a pretty good chance we're probably going to apply a gateway or recommend applying the gateway overlay for design.
I don't have any questions. I thought you explained it well and I read stuff and it made sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you. My one question, a few of them have been answered. But I'm assuming that you've heard from some of the property owners that are within that overlay.
I had a couple ask questions for more explanation. We created a project page for this, so I sent them the link to it. And other than a couple inquiries from Andrew and comments, Andrew Field, who spoke earlier, I haven't heard back from anybody else that's a property owner. I think that I would say I got more inquiries about, I'm not in the city, why did I get this notice? Or I'm not in this than anything else. So that just tells me next time I have to do a better job of making it clear so that I don't freak people out when they get a certified mail.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. I have no further questions.
Bailey?
I just have I did the digging on the properties, like the actual addresses and what buildings and businesses are there and who the property owners are. And not that it matters, but a majority of these are the large scale commercial places like Safeway, McDonald's, Albertsons, Starbucks. As Manny's properties do fall in, that they just are transitioning to wrestlers, so that might be something that impacts them. But a lot of these places are developing the hotels as well, that Dean Fulford's a part of over by the Clearfield. So to have those be more consistent, I think is a good thing, or have signage or monuments erected. Just to be consistent is a good thing, so I think you did a good job explaining it. I'm kind of excited about it. I guess I can't tell that I'm excited.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah,
It's
just
like-
Thanks for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. And I don't have any questions, but I'll just make a comment. I do appreciate the work that Crescendo did, and the opportunity the community had to weigh in, as a member of the land use board that participated in the growth policy update. I, got to participate firsthand in community comments around creating these gateways, and I appreciate moving forward with the map, which is a sort of a needed entity when we're talking about, promoting these gateway areas in our community. So thanks to the city, thanks to Crescendo, thanks to the folks who showed up on that snowy evening to give their comments on the vision.
They
for
got
these
cookies and coffee, so.
gateway.
Yeah.
Yes, good. Oh, everybody's tough around here. So I just want to appreciate the process. And I appreciate the thoroughness of the staff report. And so, as Jennifer mentioned, what our task is tonight is to make a recommendation to the commission. And then the commission will take our recommendation into consideration when they vote on whether to approve the map. So I am ready to entertain a motion. Anybody would like to make one? Great, Frank, what's your motion?
To approve the map.
So,
It is.
okay, so the motion from Frank is to approve the gateway overlay map
And then
amendment
as proposed by staff.
as proposed by
That's
the
what I
city
understand.
staff. Thank you.
And I'd second that as drafted by staff.
Okay, thank you. We have a,
way to do a comment before you accept?
yes, it's
Yes,
coming up.
that's, yeah.
Yep, it's coming up
We
right
just
now.
have the motions. They're not actually gonna act on the motion until you've had a chance to comment on, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, it's totally fine. You hop right in there. It's okay. I've done enough talking today. Okay, so the motion before us is to recommend approval of the city's, recommendation, the city staff's recommendation. So before we vote, now we open it up to public comment on this agenda item. So if you're interested in making a comment on this agenda item, please come up to the podium. You state your name and your physical address. And then you've got 4 minutes to make your comment.
Trevor Speak, RK Land and Cattle. 84 Rustad Lane. Can you pull up the map for me over here?
Pause this, so I'm not timing you later, I know this. Yes, if you pull it up and share. This one, right here?
Yeah.
Share the screen
Put it
real
on our
quick, yeah.
property.
I'm just gonna share so people at home can see what you're talking about. Still not finding you, so, okay, so I'm gonna blow this up. And where is your property?
Hartgate, very easy. Pretty good.
Oh, east, oh, this way?
This way, yeah.
Okay, this,
Yeah, so why, so first of all, what was the criteria and consideration for this piece of property?
so I'll get the questions and then we can respond after. We don't do Q&A.
I know. So do you, I was just
Sorry,
trying to figure out. how-
sorry, no questions, only comments?
It's comments, and then if it seems appropriate to answer your questions in a timely manner during the meeting, we will. Otherwise, it goes directly to staff after the meeting. Does that make sense? So it's public comment. You have 4 minutes. If it's a lengthy or,
Okay, I apologize. I'm late on this. I just manage this property, and so I'm just wondering what the criteria was and consideration why it's such a remote satellite piece of property. I saw that the green, the projected forecast for the gateway zone really encompasses all of this. And I'm wondering why we have another business park in this triangle of the 40 that we sold to the developer from Bozeman. Why it's not in consideration to a gateway zone? And what was the criteria in now in our piece of
Sharing on the
property?
screen.
So I apologize, it's in the form of a question.
sounds
I
like
don't know.
Jennifer might answer it for you.
Okay,
I'm gonna, yeah, if you have others, just go ahead and I will answer, but let's take all of
Other
your
public comment.
concerns.
Okay, she's gonna
Okay.
pull up all those maps and she'll get to your question. How's that
great,
sound?
thank you.
Yeah,
That's
did
it?
you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
That was easy. Let me share so that people, and I can either do it after or. we
Let's
can
just
take
let
all
this
of it.
roll
Yeah,
through and
I
then
think
we'll address that question, because that might be a good one for everybody.
Hi, I'm
Trustee.
Bruce Whitfield, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Livingston Healthcare. And we are opposed to the amendment, and the reason being is that, the property, if you can see it, it basically has all of our property in there. So we've got, approximately 33 acres of the hospital's on currently. We're the only building out there. There's another 10 acres between us and the highway out there that's vacant right now. And then there's 102 acres across from Alpenflow that's open too. The reason that we're opposed is that, the hospital, we were wanting to build a medical office building or an ambulatory surgery center, and we want the design features to look like the hospital, the existing hospital out there. We would have to follow the design recommendations from after the application, which might not even match the hospital. The other thing is, having to do studies, economic studies, wildlife studies, all that kind of stuff is just an extra burden for us to do something adjacent to our property that would fall in line with the hospital. So those are our concerns, and why we'd be opposed to it. The other thing too I was gonna mention is that also even the part where it says you can't have backlit signage. I mean, all hospitals have backlit signage, and they also have medical office buildings, all of that is, so it would be completely different from anything that we have. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Bruce. Is there any other public comment?
I have one question.
Oh, hold on one second. We're gonna do, in the room first. I'm sorry, and then we'll come to online. My apologies. We have somebody coming up in the audience.
Slow but steady. Tricia Grable, 204 East Calendar Street. Again, I reiterate my support of approving this map as presented. there is, I'm going to say one other thing regarding these gateways. We know from research, and I've been at this for 25 years, that if someone turns off at exit 337 or 333 or 330, only 5% go to our downtown. We have no incentive for them anymore to come to our downtown. And we are, I'm going to say, we are looking at possibly being a World Heritage Site. That means that Livingston's downtown was the original entrance to the first national park in the world. There are two books. I'm writing one, and Jovic is writing one on that early period in which we created our downtown. In many ways, we defined what a park was. And we're the first entrance to the first national park in the world. There have been 6,555 national parks following the creation of Yellowstone National Park, where we were the first. So we have a unique place in the world as well, in this downtown that we are trying to save and to hope that some way will flourish. We're also on the verge of a number of things that will help our downtown. But I will I will say that without our growth policy and without an overlay zone, I don't believe can make it. And I say this after I started with urban planning when I was 24 years old, and I'm older than dirt now, so that time in between has been remarkable. So what you are doing today is of great significance, not only for Livingston and the people here, but we have a unique community that we need to protect. And really, I think we have a future. If we look at what our history is, what a remarkable community you would be protecting by passing this. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. Anyone else in the room have a public comment?
Do I need to sign in again?
Yes, please.
No, I don't think so, if it's already on there.
Okay, no, thank you. Go ahead. Sorry, Andrew.
That's okay. I think that this is rushed. And that the question you asked was really good. Why are we doing this in advance of going thoroughly through with the help of outside consultants, going through our zoning, being thoughtful about it, and making sure that we comply with state law, which has been revised over the last 20 years. A lot of things have to do with zoning and subdivision. And I think that doing this right now is hasty and is likely to get the city in trouble. Refer to previous comments, but I think jumping in and saying, well, let's just use this, given the problematic nature of the overlay language that applies here, I think it's problematic, and I advise against it. Thank you.
How's everybody doing today? My name is Manny Getz, and lived here about 29 years. I've done a little bit of development here and there, and before I came here, I was a developer for 25 years. And one of the things that I'm facing right now, I sit on economic development in the city and in the county, is what considerations am I taking for affordable housing? Because any design standards that we put on projects has to be put into those projects. And anything that you add to it is an additional expense. And with additional expenses becomes unaffordability. So when I look at it is, I just want to make sure that we put the proper thought into it. Because anything that we get approved with additional building standards is going to create more unaffordability. And right now, I think that's a big issue we need to look at right now. Thank you.
Can you state your address too for us, please?
302 Old Clyde Park Road.
Thank you. Thanks for your comment. Any other comments in the room? General comment in the room? Or not general? Agenda comment, sorry. Okay, we're gonna go online. If you have a comment, please unmute yourself and state your name and full address, please.
My name is Richard Smith. And my address is 486 Blodgett View. My question, and it was articulated that the only additional properties that were added were those that were annexed into the city since that green map was created. But I'm wondering, printing for less property there was annexed 22 years ago, maybe longer. And the original dark green map did not show that property, but now it is shown in this new overlay. And I'm wondering why, and why it wasn't previously.
Okay, thank you for your comment. We're gonna address that question when we address the other gentleman's question about how it was included in the map. Thank you. Sarah, do you have a comment? I see your,
I do. Thanks, Jesse. Sarah Stands, 217 Southeast Street in Livingston. I am commenting on behalf of the Park County Environmental Council and the Community Resilience Director. And I am commenting to express our strong support for the recommendation regarding gateways and overlay zones. This discussion to support this much needed district has been ongoing for at least 5 or 6 years. So it's not a new process by any means. It's gone on longer than most of us have been here working at PCEC, and it's really exciting to see that it's reached this critical stage. I think the city has really demonstrated a commitment to public participation throughout this process, and it's really commendable. We've been through many iterations of public participation models, and this one did actually stand out despite the crappy weather. And the numerous opportunities really have ensured comprehensive, inclusive comments and an approach to voice concerns as well as vision. And based on the public comments in the document and thoroughness so far, I would like to reiterate the importance of continued public input throughout the zoning code update process and any recommendations that are put forward by the land use board today. I also just want to point out how exciting it is to see this process overlaid with the growth policy, downtown master planning process, and other guiding community planning documents. We really recognize how time consuming this is, yet it really demonstrates good governance and honors the many years of work by hundreds of residents, business owners, families, and everybody in the room, and the others that have shown up to participate in all those planning processes. So we really look forward to actively engaging in the next steps. We know this isn't the last moment to provide public input, and excited about the zoning regulation update process. And really realizing this vision and the growth policy. I just have a couple of questions. A lot of them have been answered. So I'm curious why Old Clyde Park Road is not considered a gateway. Is it because it requires a state highway or interstate, or is it that no commercial property exists in these areas? And then where there are other historical travelways and potential gateway overlays? Are they considered in land use planning? I'm specifically referring to Jerry Brecky's 2014 From Here to There in Park County, Montana, where it talked about trails, roads, and byways. And maybe there's just another platform in which those areas can be honored and considered in our building standards and design processes. And then Jen, just if you could reiterate possibly, I know you spoke about it briefly, the timeline that's anticipated of the zoning regulation update process after you appoint the consultants. Thank you so much.
thanks for your comment. Is there anyone else online that has a comment they'd like to make? If you do, you can unmute yourself and state your name and address.
Hello,
Hi, just your first name, your full name and your address, please.
Tammy Lewis, 84 Fox Run.
Thanks, Tammy. Go ahead.
So I just needed a point of clarification, only because I have a business that is located by Trevor's place. And my concern, I need a clarification. If that ends up being annexed into the city, am I required to up my building to meet the zoning requirements that you guys are implementing?
Okay, if that's your comment, I don't know what first place is.
That's
Sorry.
fine.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Sorry, Trevor.
It's not far.
So my understanding of what we are discussing this evening, Tammy, I'm gonna take my best shot at this, but we did give you the information on who you can contact for further questions. Is we are discussing the recommendation of the city for the map that is in front of us today. Any commercial building that already exists within this map is
Not.
there's, yeah, not subject to, I guess grandfathered in is sort of the word for that. If, you know, if this passes the commission, it does not mean that anyone within this map has to change their building design. It is just a process for which the growth policy is recommend that the city create gateway areas within our city gateways. And within those gateways, any future development or more than 50% reconstruction or change to an existing building would be subject to the building and design standards. And the suggestion this evening is that if this passes the commission, the building design standards that were passed in 2021, which is section 30.46 of the zoning code.
Passed in 2007.
I'm sorry,
They were last
2007, but
updated
they
in
were
2021, yeah.
updated in 2021, excuse me, would be the standards that any new commercial development in these blue areas would be subject to. The other comment that Jennifer made was the city is right now vetting proposals from companies to rewrite the zoning code,
The entire
which
zoning code, look at all of chapter.
which would include chapter 30.46. So in the time that this map is passed, if there's new construction that would be coming, or if there's a modification more than 50% to a building that exists within these blue squares, they would be subject to the 3046 as it stands now. However, if there are changes to 3046, they will be made over the next year and 18 months when the city hires a consultant and they go through the building standards.
Yes, and or if the city commission decides that they would like to look at that before
Particular.
the code on.
Okay,
But that's their call, and that's again, where commenters
right.
would want to bring that forward to the city.
To the city. So right now, just to help you, Tammy, we're not really discussing anything outside of those 4 or 3 or however many blue squares are on this map. So the
49.
motion before us right now is to approve the city's recommended map amendment. To designate the gateway overlays. That's what's before us. Okay. Is there any more public comment either in the room or on Zoom? Last call for public comment. Okay, we're going to close public comment. We always appreciate comment. So thank you very much. And thanks for entertaining questions. Jennifer, you wrote down the 3 questions that came up during the public comment. And so if you don't mind going through,
Yes.
it sounds like,
I actually have like 5.
okay, perfect. However many you wrote down is great.
So I will start with your question about the area out by Glass Baby, that little small square, that, interestingly enough, I didn't think it, that is zone CBD. That zoning was created, my understanding is when a subdivision developer came through long ago and asked for all of this area to be rezoned, R1 to allow for large parcel housing, R3 for more dense housing, and then CBD, because my understanding, and again, don't quote me on this because this is way before my time, was that they were looking to have some sort of commercial, neighborhood commercial thing where people didn't always have to come into town for it. That, approval, what's the word I'm looking for? It expired. So it was never acted on. Now it is owned by somebody else, but this parcel, because the zoning is still CBD, we are proposing it be included here. If the owner of this property wanted to come through and request, it to be rezoned, for some reason, and staff considered it and looked at what the future land use map is and said, oh, that makes sense, then that the city commission, they may recommend, the land use board may recommend it's rezoned, and the city commission may approve that. But we're not going right now, again, trying to sort of streamline this as much as possible. Because I am the planning department. So, this is one of many things I'm working on. We're trying to kind of utilize what we have in the interim until we have a consultant who, this is what they do. They do zoning code updates. This is their specialty, right? We hire somebody that looks at the entire chapter 30. As part of that, they will look at the zoning map. And it is likely, I think, that there will be some changes recommended by that consultant throughout that update process. But the reason it was included is because currently it is zone CBD, which means currently if the owner wanted to develop this, or somebody wanted to develop one here, they could develop it with commercial uses. And so this way they would be subject to those design standards. So that's why it was included. As far as, the concern that the city is gonna get themselves into litigation, I'm sure that we appreciate that, but we're gonna let the city attorney worry about that. That's his job. PFL, that is a good question, actually. We looked at that because I was shocked that it was not originally in the PFL FedEx, was annexed into the city when the growth policy happened, and it is not included in here. I'm gonna just say that and again, I was not here when the growth policy was, what the process happened and when it was adopted. If I were here, I may have recommended that this map be done completely different. Again, it doesn't make any sense to me why you would include areas that are not in the city of Livingston to be zoned as part of the city of Livingston. One of those recommendations may have been that we consider, again, any commercially zoned property that to be included in this, because those standards apply to commercial zoning. There are some other areas, so we put that back in because it made, from the staff's point of view, it made sense. It was kind of within this area. It was adjacent to another area that, see who else is at the Jessen property again, which was in the city, that was being considered a gateway. And part of this, and it's really the less technical part, but gateways, again, the point of them is sort of, you're coming into Livingston. So as you get off of this exit and you come into the city of Livingston, this property, these two properties are right there on the right. So I'm not sure why it wasn't included, but that was a change that staff recommended. Again, pulling out the residentially zoned parcels. That was one change that we made in the proposed map, including parcels that have been annexed in. And that is one also that it just made sense. There's a couple down here as well, like, and all I can think of is perhaps like this is Albertsons, right? Maybe it's because they thought there was already development on there, and so why bother? That just didn't make sense to staff when we looked at it this time around. So again, that could be something that is all looked at later, but why we included this in and made these changes, that was the reason behind it. I felt like when I looked at this and I looked at the growth policy and the intent of applying design standards and identifying gateways, that was what made sense to me. But again, it's your recommendation. If that's something that you would like to change, you are certainly welcome to do it. As far as recommending forward to the city commission. Next, Clyde Park Road. Clyde Park Road is not included in this because it's outside city limits.
Yeah.
So, Clyde Park Road starts right there. And that is north of the city limits. So that is why, we're not looking at anything up here. Another thing you can see is it's all residential development right now. And I'm gonna say, the city is not actively looking to annex anything. We got enough to deal with right now. But again, let's say for somehow some of these properties got annexed. I mean, right now, my guess is we would recommend the zoning be residential. So it's to stick with what's on there. And so it doesn't really make sense to look outside that. But as it is, it's not in the city. So it's not part of our, what we're looking at right now as far as what's included. There was another one, and actually, Sarah, I can give this at the end of the meeting if you want. You asked about just, reiterating the zoning update process timeline. And I'm happy to do that, but, I'd rather, if you're okay with it, just kind of waiting until after we've gotten through this agenda item. That way, if people are just here for this agenda item and they're ready to go and watch game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, then we can let them do that.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so now it's back to us. We have a motion and a second.
Do you want to reiterate what that motion was? Would you like me to?
You can do it if you'd like to.
I just because it was a little
Yeah.
while, just, you know.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Actually, I would like some clarification. Just for a moment. So as I understood it, when I read it, that this overlay would not change any of the zoning material within those districts at all. It would not change anything.
the uses.
Yeah, the
basically,
uses that are
correct.
approved at this point or will be changed later. Is that correct? This overlay
The
will
uses
not.
that, no,
Yes,
the
the
overlay,
zoning will
correct.
not change.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, okay.
uses
It
are
should-
not.
So it
by
doesn't
these.
have an effect on the zoning of these parcels.
It's
at
just
all.
mapping.
Okay,
the
just wanted to
design.
make sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Would you like to reiterate the motion?
Yeah, so just the motion was Frank made a motion to approve the proposed map amendment as proposed in the staff report by me, by staff. And then Forrest seconded that motion. And then we had the discussion. And so now it's up to you if you want to move forward with that motion and take action or amend it or.
Does anybody have comments before we roll call on the motion? Okay, we're gonna roll call on the motion. Bailey,
Approve.
John,
Approve,
Frank,
approve,
Forrest,
approve.
Becky,
Approve.
and I approve. Motion passes. Okay. Now we are at the end of our agenda with board comments. Anybody have any final comments before we adjourn the meeting this evening? No? Okay, I'm just gonna say thanks everybody for being here this evening. We really appreciate it. Just to clarify for anyone who has questions about information, so the city staff always posts the entire packet, which will have for July, it'll have this meeting's minutes. All of the previous meetings are up there, the packet, the maps, everything that we have received, the public receives that as well. You have a link to join online. You can always come in, you can write your comment via email and we will receive those comments prior to the meeting as long as you give them a little bit of time to get it to us. So there are many ways for you to review past meetings and packets. You can even listen to the meeting because they're
Yeah.
recorded.
The
Yeah.
livingstonmontana.org meetings.
Yep.
This page
So
has it
just
all.
know that there are lots of ways to be informed. And then your ways to make comments are online during the meeting, via email during the meeting. You can call the city and make comments, although those will be more difficult to get to us. You can email your comments in, and again, as long as we get them within a reasonable time before the meeting, we will all have access to those comments as well. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood kind of how the information is made available to you. So the recordings from this meeting will pop up on that very same website. And you
Over the
can
next couple
see,
days.
you know, if you came up and made a comment, you'll be on, so they'll see you and hear your comment as well. So
And then for the July 16th, so we're not having a July 2nd city commission meeting because it's right before rodeo and all that. So we are only having one meeting in July for the city commission, that's July 16th, and this will be on that agenda. And so, if there's any changes, I don't anticipate it, since it was approved as proposed. There'll be a little change in the staff report, basically, that confirms that the motion passed and some of the concerns or comments that were brought up. And then, the same as far as if you want to make comments or send in comments before, you need to get those at the very late, the sooner you can get them in, the better. But, we'll take them the packet goes out on Thursday, so they need to be in by Wednesday if you want them included in the official packet. However, you can still email in or send us comments up until, I mean, I've taken them, I'm not gonna say that for, depending on how many we're getting, I mean, we bring as much as we can. Typically, I'm gonna say it's like the morning of, we have to kind of cut it off and get that information to the commission, but then you can just come to the meeting and make your comment there. So, there's several ways. If you'll have comments, or questions, email me. Happy to.
And I will just add one more thing. Sometimes when the comments are so lengthy, it's very hard for us to do Q&A back and forth. So just, I'm glad we were able to do it today, but I just sort of don't want to set that precedent. There are times when the public comment is pretty, there's a lot of volume to it. There's a lot of them. So at that point, just so the meeting doesn't drag on forever, that back and forth doesn't always happen. We'll just take your comment, but then I'll probably just respond with, please call Jennifer or the city manager. But we were able to do that tonight, which worked out.
These I feel like these pertain specifically to the mapping and why, so it made sense.
Yep, perfect.
And then if y'all didn't have any others, I was just gonna reiterate the zoning update process.
Yep, great.
I do have one quick question. If, community members were able, could they request a printed packet from you?
I mean, I prefer to just send them, but yes, they
Okay.
can. I mean, we can't, be printing 300 packets for people. I
Cool.
always try to send them to the project page and send them a link to the packet online. But yes, if somebody came in and said, can you please print me a packet? I mean, especially this one, it's very small. I don't know, like for the city commission packet that sometimes is 300 pages. I don't handle that one, so I don't know, but I'm always happy. I could print the staff report or anything like that if somebody would like to have that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good to know. Just, I think disseminating the information to anyone in any shape or form that they want is really important, so.
Yeah,
I
we
think that's
try.
great.
It's just, it's the expense and the staff time. So, but it's, it's a couple people here and there. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
And then, so was that, do you want me to real quick, just the zoning update
Yep,
process?
sure.
So, and actually this kind of ties in just really quickly. Like I said, we have received a couple of, proposals from, potential zoning code update consultants. Teams, it's typically teams, right? Everybody brings a little something different. Like one of them has a landscape architect on it, attorney, somebody that's done the planning, that kind of, so they're made up of different specialties. And we have two teams that submitted proposals, that we are currently the, selection committee. It's a small, committee, includes some staff and some, members of, boards and officially associated with the city. It's basically just to kind of go through these, look at them against the scope of work that we set out for what we wanted for this, evaluate them. I am really a big believer in kind of making everything, documenting it. So, we have all the selection committee doing a scoring matrix. So they're going to score how well they hit those certain criteria that we looked for. There's a percentage that we put out in the RFP, and they're going to rank 1 to 5. So it's all quantitative. And then we look at it like that, and then we will interview somebody. We could interview both of them, but typically like we had 9 applications for the downtown plan. We interviewed 2 consultants, we chose 1. So we'll just see what the selection committee comes up with. Once that's done, there will probably be some back and forth for best and final offers. If the consultant selected, maybe they're over our budget, what they're proposing, we'll kind of figure that out. We'll work with them on that. We'll get a best and final offer. And then I anticipate, The plan is to have this go before the July 16th City Commission to execute the contract, because it is, right now we have budgeted $125,000, so it's well over what I or the city manager can execute on our own. It has to go through the City Commission, but this was already included in the budget. It actually was included in the last budget, and we just rolled it over because we weren't able to kind of get to it. We had so much going on with the plan, the downtown plan. So that should be done hopefully by the July 16th. And then I anticipate within a week or two, we're gonna have like a kickoff meeting, working with the consultant that's selected. They kind of give us their idea of when they're gonna start public, outreach. We have indicated we would like to get that started as soon as possible. It may be that, like the downtown plan, they show up at the farmer's market in our city booth or something. They may put out surveys to get feedback from people. Part of this selection process is they're going to come to us and say, this is how we're proposing to do our outreach. You know, we give points in the selection for somebody that kind of thinks outside the box. Because we want people that aren't typically aware of how to, and zoning is not the most exciting thing for some people to be involved in code. So it's going to be really important for this one to try to garner that outreach and input. But I think that we're looking at, Sarah, about a year, and we've given them a little leeway and said that's our ideal, but depending on, you know, the requests for changes from the land use board and or the city commission, and for their ability to incorporate that, it may take a little longer, and we understand that. But it roughly a year is what we're looking at for it to get before the city commission. Let's just say that. And again, it has to have 2 readings, and then it's 30 more days before it goes into effect. And I can promise you there will be also part of that strategy is outreach on letting people know what's changed. I mean, we don't want people to be surprised when they come in for a building permit. We're like, nope, can't do that anymore. That's not at all what we're trying to do. So there's, along with the outreach and the public participation and spreading the word during the planning process, once the code update is adopted, there will be a public outreach component to that. To just make sure people are aware of what's changed. Maybe it's by neighborhood. So there's that. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect. Thank you
Okay.
more than, yeah, thank you.
Sorry. And then lastly, for you guys, just the, we may not, right now, we don't have anything coming for the July meeting. So if you are up for it, we can nix that. The downtown master plan will be coming before you in August. Yep. The consultant asked for a little more time to do one more touch base with the URA. And so it's pushing back, but we anticipate it's going to come before you on the August 14th meeting.
August 14th.
And it will be we're gonna have it out at least 2 weeks before the meeting, your packet, and out to the public so that people have time to look at it. I promise. So thanks. Anything else? Do you want to call it?
Yes, thank you very much. And we are going to adjourn at 7:14 PM.
Thanks, everybody.